Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolute masterclass in modern industrial alchemy. We are looking at a system that takes one of the messiest, most chaotic liabilities in North America, which is construction and municipal waste, and literally transforms it into a highly verifiable, high-margin biocarbon asset. We're talking about the 905 Wood Digital Refinery. It basically acts as this sentient bridge connecting brute force, boots-on-the-ground logistics with the ultra-high purity requirements of the global circular bioeconomy. So, if you want to understand how cutting-edge AI is stepping in to solve real-world heavy industry crises, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into the roadmap for today. First, Ontario's waste export crisis. 2. Edge AI at the gate. 3. Automated regulatory adjudication. 4. Shorting the landfill. 5. The biocarbon transformation. And finally, 6. Deploying the sentient bridge. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Ontario's waste export crisis.
To really appreciate this technology, we first have to understand the staggering scale of the problem following the January 1, 2026 blue box collapse for commercial streams. Just think about this number for a second. 3.46 million tons. That is the sheer volume of municipal solid waste, or MSW disposal export, shipped across the U.S. border to Michigan landfills from Ontario, Canada, every single year. That staggering amount of trash eats up 14.35% of all waste disposed of in Michigan landfills. It's a massive, massive physical and logistical vulnerability.
Now you might be wondering, why is this happening? Well, the core economic engine driving this massive Ontario-Michigan waste corridor is tipping fee arbitrage. In Toronto, it costs at least $189.86 to dump a ton of waste. Meanwhile, in Michigan, the accept-side fee is basically a rounding error at just $5 a ton. Naturally, the market is going to take the path of least resistance. But relying on this incredibly cheap Michigan disposal is a shifting regime, and overnight it has become a massive geopolitical liability.
Let's look at how this all builds into a perfect storm. When you do a deep dive investigation into current year-to-date headline news trends, you see immense pressure building between Doug Ford's government in Ontario and Donald Trump's administration in Washington over USMCA tariffs, or CUSMA as it's known up in Canada. Just look at these deadlines. Following the blue box collapse, there was a 15% surcharge hitting in July 2026, and then these massive 50% duties on wood and paper products looming in August. If the border effectively closes to this waste, Ontario faces total landfill exhaustion by a 2034 capacity cliff. So, the industry urgently needs a way to secure USMCA exempt status for its materials, specifically using customs code HS 3825.0 for diverted clean wood.
Moving right along to Section 2, Edge AI at the gate.
So how do you actually stop this geopolitical squeeze? You don't do it at the border. You have to intervene right at the point of origin. Enter the 905 Wood Digital Refinery. Now, what's really interesting about this is that it isn't some traditional sorting facility with a bunch of dusty conveyor belts. It is a technical intervention that stabilizes chaotic waste flows. By classifying and auditing materials the very second they are collected using Edge AI, it acts as a digital firewall. It protects the Ontario-Michigan corridor from those devastating tariffs by proving, without a shadow of a doubt, exactly what is in every single load.
Okay, so how does it actually work in the field? This is where the 905 Wood Digital Refinery workflow gets incredibly futuristic. The whole operation runs on a Google Pixel 10 Pro equipped with Android 16. Through the Tensor G5 chip, it utilizes the Light RT AI stack to process material classifications in under 500 milliseconds. It uses a primary GMA4 model to instantly identify the waste, and then a secondary GMA4 visual fallacy guard steps in to double-check edge cases. It is completely instantaneous, meaning it creates zero operational friction for the drivers on the ground.
And this right here, this is the magic bullet. Because the Pixel 10 Pro has a Titan M2 hardware root of trust, it creates what is known as a hold-to-seal audit trail. It stamps every single load with tamper-evident kernel hashes and exact GPS coordinates down to the meter. We aren't just talking about a time-stamped photo, we are talking about literal court-admissible evidence of the material's exact state before it ever hits the highway.
Which brings us to Section 3, Automated Regulatory Adjudication.
Once that material is classified at the edge, the tech stack basically transforms into a real-time environmental lawyer. This is the manifest as a service engine.
Backed by a remarkably powerful Gemma 4 26 billion parameter mixture of experts model, this system instantly cross-references the intake data against Ontario's highly specific OREG 347 Part A generator codes. It allows 905 Wood to generate perfectly compliant digital manifests at absolute scale, completely removing human bottlenecks.
To prevent hazardous breaches, the AI maintains incredibly strict boundaries. The system is hard-coded toxicological auto-reject thresholds based on TCLP data. If it suspects arsenic, lead, or chromium levels are above these limits, boom, the AI halts the process. And if the visual models fail to reach a clear consensus on safety, it immediately escalates the load for physical X-ray fluorescence and near-infrared cross-validation just to ensure zero hazardous breaches.
All right, on to Section 4, shorting the landfill.
With that rigorous compliance lockdown, we achieve an economic reversal that the industry calls shorting the landfill. By classifying the wood accurately right at Layer 1, the Digital Refinery locks in the absolute lowest legal rate for their 144-yard, 19.15 net ton trailer, which they affectionately call the mothership. Look at this traumatic delta. If a mothership rolls up to the landfill classified as a mixed band liability, it triggers a hefty $1,149 levy. But by routing it as a verified clean band asset, that fee completely plummets to just $95.77.
To put that into perspective, the crucial point is how this scales up over time. If you're running 200 mothership loads a week, capturing that spread between the mixed waste levies and the clean stream routing generates an annual savings delta of almost $11 million. That is the sheer financial power of automated compliance in action.
Now for the really cool part, Section 5, the biocarbon transformation.
Avoiding those massive fees is honestly only half the story. The true alchemy happens when this diverted, clean wood finally reaches the Char-Thorold biohub. This is the carbon gold math. The biohub uses high-temperature pyrolysis to literally turn that clean dimensional wood into biochar, generating CO2 removal certificates, or CORCs. A single mothership yields 14.36 tons of CO2 equivalents. At standard book value, that's worth roughly 2,721 Canadian dollars. But because 905 Wood has this flawless tamper-proof data, they can actually access the premium spot high market, rocketing that valuation all the way up to 7,660 Canadian dollars per trailer.
Now that massive leap in value is justified purely by data integrity. The Operon Scientific Workspace houses the entire evidence chain. It proves the audit lineage all the way back to the exact GPS coordinates and kernel hashes that were captured by the Pixel 10 Pro at Layer 1. In the biocarbon market, pristine data equals premium pricing, for sure.
And finally, Section 6, deploying the sentient bridge.
Bringing it all together, the entire 905 Wood Digital Refinery application workflow generates a completely seamless UI/UX output featuring pristine PDF documentation features. For every single load, from the initial request for quote all the way through verification and compliance, you get this explainable compliance package. It outputs a 9-point USMCA Shield Certificate of Origin to absolutely guarantee tariff-exempt transit. It provides legally signed manifests, a zero-levy report card, and the final carbon dividend registry entry. It completely shields the operator from those looming Washington tariffs, and in the process secures Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy.
Actually, let's talk about a quick war story here, because operating a massive AI fleet at the edge isn't without its hiccups. The source material highlights a technical latency risk, specifically a fine-tuning error called a Q-LoRa Stage 3 failure, that actually caused the carbon dividend math to hallucinate much higher values. It's a fascinating look at the very real-world realities of AI deployment, which is exactly why the system is hard-coded to default to conservative book valuations until all decision corpuses are perfectly, flawlessly integrated.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen how the 905 Wood Digital Refinery acts as the sentient bridge, transforming a geopolitical, multi-million-ton municipal solid waste nightmare into highly audited biocarbon gold. It really forces you to look at your own logistical constraints totally differently. Is your industry's greatest liability actually just a high-margin asset waiting for the right digital refinery? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the way things have always been done.